You want people who are going to bring your name up in a room of opportunities when you're not there.
In school, people think that you're either creative or not. And if you're creative, you're going to have this like bullshit job as an artist or a graphic designer and be broke. That's the mentality. Whereas the reality is everybody is creative, but they beat it out of you.
People spend insane amount of money on personal development, and I have respect for it. That's not money you'll ever regret spending. Like travel, you never regret money you spend on travel, or your pets, or your partners. Just don't regret that money that you spend.
Before we start this podcast, I have one little favor to ask you. Can you please hit the subscribe button down below so we can help more people every single week? Thank you. So usually I never preface podcasts and stuff like this, but I think what's actually important for this is actually to give a bit of background into like how we met. So I think what's so fucking crazy about this is that, so I saw you on Strava. I said this to you before, and I saw you in Canada running these crazy like 140 kilometers, 80 kilometers, 90 kilometers in the middle of nowhere. And I had no idea who you were. And then when we met like last week, you were like, yeah, I remember you from fucking raving and partying together. And I don't remember that, which just shows up how fucked up I was in my young 20s, which I basically had been.
I'm going to say Kappa Future.
Kappa Future, yeah, in Italy. So I bear in mind, I nearly caked it completely that weekend. But the worrying part is the fact that we had spent time together and I had seen you afterwards and followed you and never knew I was with you. So there's two things here for me. One, there's the session life that we've almost said goodbye to. And then there's the other side of like all the things you've gone on to do, which to me is the whole basis for this conversation.
No, I appreciate that. And it's incredibly mutual though. Like
100%.
You know, finishing the race here in Bali and immediately having two people reach out to me being like, Darren Lee is in Bali for the last few years. And like, I didn't even know that you'd been in Bali. You know, I was here in September. I could have seen you then. I didn't even know.
You were David DC.
Yeah. And and it was David who reached out to me after and been like, you know, he sent me your story of your run club thing. And then I was just like, okay, I'm gonna have to go. Like legs don't feel too good. So many days after the race, like I'm still like pretty dehydrated. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to go. And thank God I did. But yeah, touching on the session life, that was just a strange time, but one that must be reflected on. You know, because so many things happen in that time in your life where like there's people that you think are your friend that aren't your friend. You know, once you remove the substance from a friendship, most friendships will dissolve naturally. And that's just a fact. And it's even, but I mean, even alcohol too. Sometimes people have drinking buddies in the pub, but like if something happened and you needed one of those people to be at your house at 4 o'clock in the morning or be at even 8 o'clock in the morning, are they even going to be in a stable condition to drive or like come and get you if it's an emergency? Probably not. Probably won't even answer the phone, man. And to me, that scared me because I like loyalty is everything, and to have close friends around me, you know, your friend will share your vision. That's a big one for me. Your friend will share your vision, and like you'll never be belittled by someone that is doing more than you. Yeah. Usually, it always comes from someone doing less, and you figure these things out when you start to work on yourself and chase sobriety and at least chase purpose. Yeah. And for me, that was the big one. That all came in one go.
It's a snowball effect. It starts off. If you move the mic a small bit closer to you, might as well. But it's a snowball effect because it starts off with doing one thing right, which could be getting your diet in place. Yeah. And then going to the gym. And then when you go to the gym, you're like, oh, I don't want to go out on Saturday. I'll just go out on Friday. And then you go out on Friday and you're like, okay, instead of going on a fucking 2-day cocaine bender, I'm just going to go on like a few drinks. And then you start stripping it back and back and back. But I think that relationship correlates positively and negatively. So we saw that early in our 20s, which I think most people do, where they correlated negatively for. I was lucky I got into the session life early. Yeah, I was 19.
Oh man, same, thank the Lord.
And I've seen people get into it at 26, 27. Like I don't think you met Louis here, and Louis has become a nice friend of mine. He got into it like 28 and he was in and out in 2 years. Yeah. But 28 is pretty old to get into that, right?
It is.
So it was almost like in and out. But I'll never forget this. Someone said to me before, never make your college habits your life habits. Yeah. And how many people have you seen that become?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a construction guy. So I mean, I was 17 years of age, first time I walked onto a construction site, Novartis pharmaceutical plant, load of scaffolders, electricians, all these tradesmen, and like then being out on other sites on street jobs in the city and like seeing 30, 40, even 50-year-olds who live for taking cocaine at the weekend. And I was just like, even like coming from Canada now, being surrounded by like that aura of people as well. And I was just like, I actually need to be around people like that in my job because it motivates me to be better. I'm like, that is not who I want to be. Like, thank fucking God I get to see what these people are like 20 years from my age right now. And it forces me into a mindset of just bulletproof. Like, I'm like, I will not allow myself to ever slip back into that. Like, the alcohol in moderation is different, but like, I will never ever take class A drugs again. I will never allow myself to let myself slip, you know?
Yeah.
Because it just domino effect.
Yeah, let's focus in on even the alcohol side of things. So you mentioned before we started recording about, you know, funerals and all this shit, alcohol has been consumed. So I had Rory Fairhain, I forget his surname, basically on my podcast, and he was like, the marketing around alcohol is commiseration, congratulations, all the different basic like emotions. They've marketed to that aspect. So it just becomes so embedded. And it's not about just hating on alcohol, hating on people that do drink alcohol and stuff. It's about like looking at the comparison. So if you didn't have your running, where do you think you would be right now? If you never took that leap?
Probably wouldn't have went to Canada. And that was a huge stepping stone because I went there as an advanced tradesman and really elevated my work career. So I wouldn't have went to Canada. I probably would have stayed in Ireland and just dreamed of the idea of someday trying to go back to Australia or something. Maybe at best, maybe going to London and like using a second passport or, you know, but continuing the alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
And that weekend pandemonium feeling and waking up on a Monday miserable and then, it's waiting to get paid on Friday again and just fucking repeating it for every week of the year. Definitely, that would have been the routine I would have fallen back into 100%. I knew I had to go to Canada. That was the difference. Like I was only back from Australia at, I was 23 years of age, got back to Ireland in January 2019. My running journey didn't really kick off until March that year when my dog died in Australia. That was booked to come back to Ireland. A lot of money, a lot of just bad shit went on there. And that fueled me and kind of set me on that train of obsession and running, you know, went from a 10-mile race. A couple of weeks later, it was marathon. And then less than 3 months later, it was a 100-mile race. And, you know, I was still drinking at that time.
Yeah.
Even a week before my 100-mile race, my best friend, my brother from another, Ryan O'Driscoll from the north side, Knocknaheany's finest.
I haven't heard the word Knocknaheany in like 6 years,
he's
bro. He's
never done drugs in his life. He enjoys his social drinks and whatnot, but a dedicated workhorse, and what a life journey this man has had. But a week before my 100-mile race, I was in Limerick watching him fight, Thai boxing fight, and he, you know, didn't go his way on the night. And this is a week before like some crazy task I have ahead of me. I was a novice signing up for 100-mile race. I didn't have a clue what the fuck I was doing.
100 miles?
Yeah, Connemara 100. A 24, like a road race, brutal. And I did not know what the fuck I was getting into. But that night when he lost, like most Irish people do, we drank our sorrows. I remember, it was the prop. I think Conor McGregor just released that proper 12 whiskey at the time.
Yeah.
I remember smashing a liter of that with him. Like I got blackout drunk, woke up in my hotel lobby outside my room, like shirt off, didn't even know what the fuck went on. Like got pissed drunk. And that was a week before my 100-mile race. So for 3 days after that, I didn't even run. I was just like, oh my God, like dying, victim mentality, like suffering.
So like, just for people with context, right? You've done the Bali Ultra, came third in that. You've run a bunch of other ultra races. You've done 6 marathons. Correct me saying that? 6, right? You've done a ton of that stuff. But with the alcohol, with the self-sabotage, why do you think you were doing that? And why do you think people do that, number one? Because what you're saying about drinking the liter of proper 12, I used to drink a liter of gin, right? And we were discussing yesterday about, Susan was asking me, did I ever buy like gin and tonics in Ireland? And I was like, no, because it was cheaper to go to Tesco to get the liter of gin and then
get the Polish vodka or the Lithuanian stuff or whatever, the Russian vodka,
and have a liter of it, right? For 11 quid, 12
petrol.
quid.
You could fuel a car off it.
But I'm not saying a long time. But why though? Like that's the question. Is why do we do that?
Okay, I think from the age I first started drinking at the age of 14 or 15.
14 as well.
And it would have been 1 liter, 2 liter bottles of the worst cider possible. Linder Village, Devil's Bit, druids, all these nasty drinks, right? And I never once from the age of 14 or 15 until the age of 23 drank to drink socially. I drank to get pissed. And that is like, only now I'm realizing that. I'm like, holy shit, man. And like, I'm a small guy, bro. It don't take much for me to start feeling tipsy and moving mad, you know? So I think that's ingrained in a lot of Irish people. They don't know how to moderate. Again, I bring it back to the generational trauma. A lot of trauma our parents haven't dealt with, not because of their life, but because of the grandparents' side of things, coming through the troubles in Ireland, coming through tough times that we aren't aware of because we've grown up in a softer time. And like, my grandfather's 85 years of age right now. He's from Tipperary. He lives down in Kinmare and Kerry. He used to walk to school in his bare feet. Now, this man making rabbit snares in his backyard, and like, I couldn't make a snare if you paid me. I don't know what, like, I wouldn't have, if I had to walk to school in my bare feet as a child, I would have kicked and screamed. I wouldn't have been able. But this is the difference. And that's only how much, 60 years between me and him right now. It's madness, like absolute madness. So I just feel like times are different, but I just don't feel like it's been dealt with properly.
But let's just deconstruct that a small bit, because I agree with you. That like, yeah, like it was fucking shit back then. It was like stone houses and stuff. But in the world today, especially in Asia, things are tough, right? Like this huge income disparity. Like, people are making $40 a month, and they don't resolve to that. Now, there's a lot of smoking in Asia, I will say that, but it's not like a lot of alcoholics in Asia. So there has to be something that's UK Irish specific, because it's nowhere else. Right, you meet American guys, and they're like, oh yeah, like they have like a beer or two, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have that level of detail that we do, which is like half a liter of gin, like drugs, beer, cigarettes, on and on and on and on and on.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a small intake on my overall summary on this. There's two types of people.
Lift up your voice a small bit, just in case.
There's two types of people that I would not compare, but I would say that Irish people have a similar drinking personality too. And this may be controversial to some people, but I feel like I'm entitled to the opinion because I've spent 2 years and 4.5 years living in both of these countries. I'm going to say the Aboriginals in Australia and the Native Americans in Canada. I can resonate with the alcoholism that they go through. I can see the similarities massively. And that might rub people up the wrong way, but if it rubs you up the wrong way, I think you need to sit back and look at yourself and maybe look at some of the things that actually are going on in Ireland with a clean heart and open eyes, and maybe we can talk about it.
Like what?
Suicide rate, massive in those three nationalities. Isolation, fighting, violence, crime, massive. And with the Native Americans and Aboriginals, alcohol wasn't introduced to them for hundreds of years later. Our livers were getting it hundreds of years before, and Europe and these other stronger countries. These literally did hundreds of years difference. So there is a reason that there might be stronger with them right now, but I do think there's a massive mutual link there.
It's just the isolation, right, as well.
But also the trauma and the pain from what they've come through, because they've come through colonialism and big problems within their country, right?
And then there's the normalization.
Yeah.
Which is the other side, right? Which is like, it's normalized to be, having the 2 beers a night, or get back from have wine time, all this kind of shit. Like, that's normalized. And it's not even, it's broader. There's alcohol, but then there's also the food side as well. Like, you look like, people think you're on a diet if you don't eat like McDonald's. If you're eating, let's say, a salad with chicken, you're on a diet and there's something wrong with you and you're anorexic and you have an eating disorder. But if you eat the McDonald's, good things, right? Well done. So I would say that's insecurity.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like, if a lot of the guys that are in Bali now don't drink, like I said in Counter, they hate being around the sessions. They hate, like, even if they go to some of the beach clubs here, they're just like, this brain dead. But a lot of times it's people that are most comfortable don't feel the need to conformity, right? And you have to go through that hump, right? Go through the sessions, go through the breakups, go through all that stuff, and then you're more comfortable with yourself as a result, because you can see the upside. So I think there's that kind of, and then there's the normalization of, we're so used to just drinking, partying, and having that as a scapegoat. Also, you mentioned about going to Canada. Yes, you 100% wouldn't have gone to Canada if you kept on drinking, because you spent half the week planning drinking and you spent the other half of the week recovering from the drink, and you can't plan for big events.
No.
So I'm coaching a guy in particular at the moment who's incredibly intelligent, much more smart than me, same age as me, same age demographic. The guy wanted to get really like senior in his career. I won't go into too much detail, so keep his privacy. But he was soothing, because he was on this pad. It's like a 10-year pad, and kind of happens slow and all this kind of shit. And I was like, is that the path you want to do? And he's like, yeah, I had the idea when I was like 22 and now I'm still on it many years later. But then when he stopped drinking, because drinking was affecting his relationships and his health and everything, he was like, wait, I don't want to do that at all. Now that I've had all this time back, the time in my mind, he's like, I actually want to go build my own stuff. I don't want to be tied to a business, tied to a job or whatever. And now in the past month, he's made more progress in the month than I would have made in 2 years, my first 2 years.
It's insane, isn't it?
So he was able to build very, very basic version of like a first version of a business, have a lot of clarity, he was able to train everything. And we caught up last night and I was like, dude, it's been a month. Extrapolate 2 years where you can be, you know? And that's the irony with all this stuff, is like, if you do the extrapolation, it goes back to the inverse, it goes back to the relationship in terms of positive or negative. On a long enough time scale, it's fucking very dangerous to see where you could end up.
Yeah.
You know, and very positive to see where you could end up too.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And it's consistency like that, just to show that guy 1 month of just some discipline and positive focus.
And he's still working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week.
Look at the results. The
potential.
Yeah, all potential too. It's going to open his eyes have opened wider. He's aware now. And it's just a self-unlocking feeling. Mm-hmm. I love hearing that. I love hearing that about other people. You know, we're talking about the running stuff earlier. I've great feelings getting through these mad races and events. But honestly, two of the most satisfying feelings I've ever had have been seeing my friend and kind of run coach, mentor, close friend of mine, Marco Manni. He fell short in a 200-mile race in the UK before, and he DNF'd after 100 miles with a horrific injury. A year later, on the day, he decided to run 200 miles, self-sponsored event out by his home in Watergrass Hill in Cork, and he did it. And I remember going out there on he was already after running 110 miles or something, 20 something hours in, whatever. I went out there and I ran 30 something kilometers with him, just chilling with him, talking, good times. To see him get through that 200-mile race, and then to pace a brother of mine, Brendan Gregory in Canada, Canadian, just savage trail runner, stonemason, hustler, to see him podium at the Fat Dog 100-kilometer race, crewed him for the day, paced about 36 kilometers with him through some of the worst section. To see him podium and to see Mark do that was some of the best feeling I ever had, because it comes back to that quote I give you, your friend will share your vision. And if you are around people that only want the best for you and you see them get that result, it's just it's an overwhelming feeling of joy for me. When I see someone get that, going back to my best friend Ryan Driscoll winning the WBC title, that's a vision that was brought to life. We spent 2 years as housemates in Australia talking about that day. So then for him to go and do that while I was living in Canada, I was like, yes, my man, he did it, and it's just a great feeling to see people do well. You want everyone to do well, but you can't bring everybody with you, and not everybody's going to want to come with you. Most people are going to want to.
Well, they want to pull to themselves, right? And that's the Hormozy thing, which is the judgment of a friend is someone who says good things about you behind your back and also wants to see you move towards your goal, basically, right? So when you achieve that goal, they actually want to be there for you. And it's interesting, right? Because I think it's different when there's money involved. I've seen horrific fucking shit, man. I've seen the worst things you could imagine in terms of friends, stabbing people in the back and ripping products and ripping businesses. I don't give a shit. I'll talk about all of it as well. And it's almost like a jealousy and envy thing. 100%. Because it goes back to survival too, right? It's we're all trying to just survive and do the best that we can. And when there's money involved, it just gets so dark and messy, you know? And I'm still someone who's building businesses and whatever, but I'm just saying it's an interesting observation of other people to see how when money's involved, how it interacts. So it's interesting from a fitness perspective because it reminds you of in the podcast perspective, which is there's nothing really at play apart from personal just achievement. Whereas a second there's money involved, it's like that guy didn't do the intro, that guy didn't help that person, that guy actually said something behind his back, and I see that play out a lot. Let's go into some of the running side of it. So when you mentioned about you ran with a couple of like savages guys and guys that really like fucking done huge things. Do you need to be like a savage to do these big events?
I don't think so. With ultramarathons, what I will say about ultramarathons is that you would have heard this. I think Zach Bitter may have said something similar to this, but it's like with the marathon, not any random person can show up and win it, right? It's very, very rare, like insanely rare. But when it comes to the ultramarathons, some guy you've never fucking heard of can show up and win. And it happens all the time. All the time. I've been at 100-mile events, 120-mile events where I've seen like a 21-year-old girl who nobody's heard of podiumed in the female stage. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, no, like, you know, and that to me blows my mind. And that's why I think ultra running is so different, because you can have a plan in a marathon. You can somewhat have a plan in an ultra, but like after a certain amount of time, plans kind of dissolve, and it's just you're feeding off of fumes and you're deep in the cookie jar, as Goggins will say, and you're like thinking about all this other crazy shit that might happen in your life, and then suddenly the pain is starting to ease up because you know what real pain is like. And that, to me, if you can tap into a stage of pain or just unwillingness to make it, like not to fail, like you're going to make the finish line no matter what, the tide will always turn. Like during an ultramarathon, us as humans, we can endure so much pain and suffering. It's outrageous. But most people don't want to believe that because, again, the world has become very soft and it's just take the easy route and let's celebrate finishing 10th and all this, you know, whatever. It's like humans are designed to run. It's literally what we do. It's the way our body is designed. There's no other way to say it. So over long distance, I honestly believe anyone with a small bit of grit and determination can sign up for an ultramarathon and finish it 100%. Like I'd be such a big advocate for that. It's outrageous because I've seen it. I've seen the people that have done it. Man, if you pull me aside in 2018 and said, you're going to run a 100-mile race next year and then you're going to go and do some other mad distances and start taking this seriously, I would have said you are smoking crack. I would have said, no fucking way. No way. Not in my wildest dreams. Only stuff I ever thought I'd be good at is playing Call of Duty or in my teenage years watching porn or something. like I, you know, like 100%. Like, so there's room for everyone in ultra running. And
walk me through that philosophy in your brain when you're doing these races. Can you pin to an example? Like walk me through like one example or a few examples. And I want to go through like the mental side of it. So like, let alone the training, we'll get into the fucking training, but like when you're going through and you're starting and you're looking down the barrel of 100 miles, how does that next 12 hours play out?
Like, you just know you're signing up for a long day. It's going to be, you know, you're thinking of the good scenarios, but there's just this little voice in the back, you know, like, oh, I know what it's like to run at this slow pace for hours and hours and hours and feel good. But then if like things don't feel great and you know you're going to have to run slower, and then you're like working out in your head how much longer it's going to take, and it's just slowly kind of becoming this mental battle in your head, it can become quite dark. Like in that first 100-mile race, I remember being 50 miles in and things were like going amazing, but then like started to have a problem with my feet, a bit of fractures and like blisters. And then I was like, oh my God, now I have to run another 50 miles and I'm in a horrific condition. And then it was like the second 50 miles in that race took me like an extra 6 or 7 hours in the first 50. So
how long was that total race?
It was a 30-hour cutoff and took me 24 hours, 52 minutes. And I was absolutely battered by the end of it, like 2 fractured feet. And I had an open wound blister the size of a baseball on the palm of my foot.
I saw the photo, man. And that was in Connemara.
That was in Connemara.
And the wind, and again, the rain.
As a rookie runner with a rookie crew, we all just, I don't know how we did it. And like, I credit those 3 guys so much. Like even now, I owe them so much for that, because to cruise someone for 24 hours is outrageous. It's an obscene task for anyone. And
did you even have food? Like, what did you have? Did you know what to do, right?
I would have carbon copied stuff I'd seen online, seeked advice, brought food and drinks that I enjoyed, you know, some sugary stuff, some just basic stuff, you know. but there was no plan. I mean, just absolutely winged it. I remember about 60 miles in, I had like a spare water gallon pack in the back of the car, and it had burst in like this container over all my dry socks and like other materials we had. So I remember Dommy Kelly, one of my crew, gave me a pair of his like cotton Dunn Stores, like not running socks. So I had this open wound fucking blister the size of a baseball on my foot. And then I had to put these cotton socks on over it and run 50 fucking miles with it. My feet were destroyed by the end of it. And it was just, I could feel the material of the sock just every step, just like ripping in. And then I remember like 82 miles in, they gave me, at the time they told me they were giving me like a ibuprofen or some heavy dose paracetamol. So I was like so excited for it to make to the next checkpoint for this like mad paracetamol they were going to give me because I was dying. Got there, took it. You know, a couple hours later, they were like, yeah, we gave you a multivitamin tablet. But placebo effect had kicked in. And from 82 miles to like 84 or 5 miles, I'd actually ran like 5K in like 21 minutes or something like outrageous. Like foot down, was in savage mode. And it was just literally placebo effect. I was just like that. It was insane. And I remember I wrote about that in a blog I published not long, or maybe like a year after the race. I got a couple of thousand views, got a lot of feedback. And like just the whole idea that was insane. Like I don't.
So you know, like
I peed once. Actually, that was one mad thing about that whole event. I peed once, and even just recently in the Ballyhope race, I peed once, and I mean like a dribble. That was it.
Why?
And like I don't know, didn't need to. I'm taking on fluids and all good, but I literally peed once.
So do you think that like your body is like made for these crazy endurance events?
Now I do. After Bali, yes. I know I have no fear of distance now. I'm like, I know what I'm signing up for. If someone like wants to go and say, you want to go run a 100-mile race, or I was telling you, like I signed up for the lottery for the Moab 240 a year and a half ago, got accepted, but like I had only signed up taking the piss at the time, thinking I would never get accepted. Got accepted. I obviously had to decline, but it was just at a mad time. I was just like, holy shit, you know, couldn't believe it. Would you do it? I 100% would do it.
So for context, that's 240 miles in the Moab Desert in Utah.
Yeah, and I mean, you're out there for more than 55, 60, 65, 70 hours. Who knows?
And the thing is, like when you came here as well, so you ran the double marathon here, came third, and I want to go through that too. And you said like, oh, it was so difficult to acclimatize to the weather and like the humidity and everything. And like that's a whole different kettle of fish as well,
definitely.
Right?
Just came through a Canadian winter training block. Freezing cold, dark, rain, cold, snow.
To you could show up here
to Bali, and it's fucking humidity 92 or 3% 100%. From start to finish of the race. Yeah. I was at the start line dripping in sweat before we even got running. It was for me, that was the hardest part about that race, was the constant dew and the heaviness of the heat. It was just always there. Like I remember getting to the top of the ridge at 1,600 or 1,400 meters elevation and just going through the clouds and feeling the mist. And I was just like, this is heaven. It was like the best feeling ever. It was unbelievable. It saved me. And then it rained for about an hour, heavy rain, saved my race. Saved me because I pushed so hard at the start that I needed a break. And I was rewarded with the rain. I was praying to God, like, please rain. Please give me rain. Because it just cooled me right down. It was amazing, honestly.
Fuck, man. Let's walk through that. So you started in the north of Bali, and then it's up mountain for how many meters?
Started at 9:30 p.m. First 4 kilometers is pretty flat, small bit of rolling hill, and then you just see it, man. It's anyone that's been to Lovina.
It's petrifying.
It's steep, man, and it's like these kind of like Irish back roads. I would compare it to, but twisty, like tight bends, but steep. As you're doing these tight bends, you have to be a phenomenal athlete to run them. I was power hiking these corners.
Did you train on them?
No, I did not do much hill training for this. I mean, I ran the Fat Dog 50 last August that had 3,500, 4,000 meters climbing, a lot of climbing. But from August to this, I virtually did no hills. All of my running was low heart rate, cruisy, conversational pace miles with friends. But I racking up the miles, like starting at 30 kilometer weeks at the start of the year, 20, 30 kilometer weeks, coming through the injuries, building slowly, leaving the ego in the bin. It was killing me, but I knew I had to do it. I was just like slow progress, 50, 60, 70 kilometer weeks. Biggest I got up to before Bali, I think was only like 80, 90 kilometers. Like did not do, the volume wasn't there, but the consistency and the discipline of nutrition and looking after my body was there.
So,
and rested. I was so well rested going into Bali.
so how does your body adapt for that? So like I had I'm preparing for a marathon and I had a physio yesterday, like look at my legs. And he was like, basically my calves, they're overused, okay? But because my body hasn't signaled, even though I'm like cardiovascular strong and I'm like, my mind is pretty fucking solid for the most part, my legs have not adapted mechanically. And they're like saying no, like a big no,
Yeah.
and they're shutting me down. So when you go from doing like 80K weeks to doing 82K in a day, how does your body not break down?
I honestly, I rely on lifetime miles. I'm like, I've ran 100 miles before. I've ran, I've done 50-kilometer training runs, done whatever. I rely on that solely. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you have been through worse.
That's the big thing, right?
Yeah, I'm
The
just like,
benchmarking.
I'm like, I've been through worse. I'm like, under worse circumstances with less experience and less training. I'm like, now I have lifetime miles, 4 or 5 years coming up on 10,000 kilometers or whatever. I'm like, that's what I think about before a race.
Question for you in this though is like, why do you do this to begin with? Like, what's going on in the brain to do this?
Purpose and fulfillment.
How?
Because running is a selfish act, I think. It can be selfless when you do charity work, when you do run club, when you run with people. Yes, there's all these great positives, but it's relatively quite a selfish thing if you're doing it solo. There's a lot of time on your own. There's a lot of time away from your partner. There's a lot of obsession there with it, and it's consuming. But for me, coming from a team sport background where playing soccer, playing hurling, all these national Irish sports, playing with unbelievable players, like top athletes. I was an average player at best in soccer and hurling. Played with great players. Always made it to starting. Got dropped a few times here and there. Remember playing great games out in CIT against like Blackrock, Napier, all these teams. Playing non-league against them was great. When it came to the big day and the pressure was on and I was starting, couldn't pick up a ball because pressure just got to me. And I think all of that now with running, I take my anger out on running. And I'm like, running isn't me. It's like I'm relying on me. I put so much pressure on myself going into running, but it benefits me. It actually fuels my journey running. Like, even with the Bally Hope, there was no nerves there with it. Any of these big races, there hasn't been nerves there until 5 seconds before. And then it's too late to be nervous because it started and you're running. And you're already thinking, do you know what I'm saying? It's like you're already in the process of it.
Well, do you want to launch a podcast for your business, but you don't know where to start? Remove the stress, pressure, and all the overwhelm that comes with it by working with Podcast University. If you're an ambitious individual who wants to build your influence online, grow your own podcast, and also stand out from the crowd, Podcast University is for you. We help you with the strategy, equipment, the content, your guests, everything you need to create a top-tier podcast. If you want to learn more, check out Podcast University and start your podcast journey today. We're cut from the same cloth, we have the same background and stuff. So I played rugby at a high level. Like I wanted to go pro in rugby. Let it up to everyone to decide was I going to make it or not before I got injured. But I didn't like team sports for one particular reason, was the fact that when you lost, there was one person's fault generally.
Always.
And then when you won, it wasn't one person won it was the team collectively. Whereas I was a sprinter, a 100-meter sprinter, and you fucking won and died by the act. So it was very fucking clear who wins, and it's very fucking clear who doesn't win.
Yeah.
And there's no debating it at all. You can get injured, whatever. But there's a first place and there's the losers. And that was what I was able to take into studying, my jobs, my startup, my podcast. And I don't view it, as a winner and loser game anymore. But I view it as in like there's a fucking handful of winners out there, and they have that killer instinct. And I think that's what's prepared me really well for not necessarily running, but just in life in general.
Life in general, yeah.
Because like I used to run, off season in the lashing rain in Ireland. You'll find this quite interesting. You know where the Mardyke is?
Yeah.
You know the hills for Sunday Well? You know where the hills are like fucking this?
Yeah.
We used to run 200 meters up there, like sprints basically in the winter, like lashing rain all through the winter over and over again. And it becomes like autistic basically because it's just like over and over and over again.
Repetitive.
And you do it for 9 months to go into a summer of the season, and then you show up and you see who fucking worked hard enough, basically.
Yeah.
And what was also interesting here is the fact that the guys that are naturally talented in their younger years are usually the guys that fuck it when they're older, because they had that natural talent and they rested on the laurels and then ended up being fucking pissheads.
Yeah.
Whereas usually the guys that were coming 6, 7, and 8, they were the dudes to watch out for. Same in business.
Yeah.
The guys that are not making money for a couple of years, they're the guys that fucking blow it out of the water because they stay in the pain. It's like running, stay in the pain, miles on their feet, years in business, time in the market. And I fucking guarantee you, you're gonna win in the end, because the guys that get not lucky but have a natural flair, or their daddy gives them 100K for their business, flash in the pan, man, in and out, in and out. So that's why I think solo sport is just a huge barometer for life, because it's how hard are you willing, how much are you willing to endure, and how hard are you willing to go, and for how long are you willing to do it.
Yeah, back to the team sports thing as well, especially in Ireland. Well, probably many countries. I do feel like there's a lot of politics and bullying almost that goes on within team sports. Like you said there, like there's always, it's one guy's fault that 15 players lost in a GA match. I've seen that firsthand. Like I've seen goalkeepers get vilified and abused in front of their whole team. Like, I'm like, you wonder then why half of these fellas, or why people from that background want to go and get pissed at the weekend then and throw away playing team sports for the pub instead. I'm like, because they probably come through and seen like some mad stuff going on with their managers. And
dude, I remember, especially in rugby, people like kicking water bottles across locker rooms and throwing water bottles.
Oh, insane!
All this.
I remember being around that energy in fucking under 12s,
same man,
under 13s, 14s, parents shouting abuse at people on the sideline.
100%.
Fucking literally, like I remember,
bro, I'm getting PTSD from this. Legit.
We've had multiracial teams in soccer and sports. I remember going up to certain sides of Cork there and playing in other places, and people literally getting racially abused at 13, 14 years of age.
So you know, like, George?
Yeah.
George is half Indo, half Scottish. The only place he's ever got racism in all of the world has been the UK. He's been everywhere in the world. He's been to fucking Machu Picchu, right? And he's never got racism apart from being in the UK.
That's insane.
And despite what people in Ireland think, UK and Ireland are basically the same thing, right? It's just there, right? Same attitude. Same attitude, right? So I just think it's a very interesting observation, right? Because, and this is where we go back to comparing it to like American culture, is that the reason why I've really kind of fell in love with like the American mindset was because, one, they push people up around each other. Like if you're telling someone you're building a business,
community.
Yeah, they're like, that's amazing. Like, can I connect you with this person? Like, I was recording in New York. We built a studio. And it was fucking mental, basically. And when I was there, the guy, one of the directors, was like, oh, if you go to Hollywood in LA, I can put you in contact with this guy. And then this guy can put you in contact with this guy in Austin. And then this guy will put you in contact with this guy in Miami.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, we just met 4 minutes ago. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So they push you on, right? And same in a sporting context too. Obviously, it's competitive, no doubt about that. But what I like to think about with this stuff is that when you're around winners, there's a mutual understanding of the competitiveness, but then there's also that togetherness of pushing each other on.
Yeah.
We're not pulling up anyone out of the gutter, right? Let's make it fucking clear, right? Like how the world works. But for the most part, when you have that initiative and you actually fucking work hard on something, then people will push hard together.
Yeah. You want, like, as well, back to what you're saying there now, it's kind of like you want people who are going to bring your name up in a room of opportunities when you're not there.
100%.
And I've experienced that full hand last couple of years. Like I remember in 2019, a few months after this running journey had kicked off and the races had all happened, and I was about 3 or 4 months away from going to Canada. But again, I was still in this kind of phase of like trying to mix the party lifestyle with running, and I wasn't I wasn't all in yet, but I was very, very close. I definitely wasn't all in financially. I was still kind of unstable and like not being very smart with my money at the time. But I remember this opportunity come up. I followed this guy called Josh Lynott, this Australian author, workshop creator, artist, insane endurance athlete, adventure photographer. Like he does it all, to be fair. He does it all. I'm actually wearing his t-shirt right now.
Sick.
So these are the days. Shout out Josh Lynott. But I'd followed him for a couple of years on Instagram, and I'd seen his first ever workshop go down the year before or a few months prior in Siargao Island, Philippines, running a mindset workshop. There was only a certain amount of people that could apply, get accepted, blah, 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 blah. There was one in November. I was meant to go to Canada in January. So at the time, I remember I was like, I had a dream that I applied and got accepted, and I was like, I went for it. So I literally, the next day, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to apply. When the opportunity comes up, I applied and got accepted. Took it as a sign. Did not have the financial savings to like go spend $5,000-6,000 on this workshop and flights to the Philippines, taking 10 days off work before I'm meant to be moving to Canada. Took out a loan and fucking did it and went. And it literally was the best self-investment I ever made in my life and changed the course of the next 5 going into the 6 years since.
What happened?
I remember at the time I like, just for example, encouraged me to delete some social apps I was spending too much time on. Deleted Snapchat at the time, never downloaded it again. Got more serious with with the drugs and all that. It was like no more fucking around with class A's or like things got serious, and it was like, I'm going to take running more seriously, goal setting, like a lot of accountability and vulnerability went on in this workshop. Like you're sharing things, you're planning, and it set up the stepping stones for the next 5 years of my life. And it wouldn't happen unless I just took that risk, man, and invested money into myself. Like, how many times do you meet a person who's like, I want to change so badly, or it's like the victim mentality, the sob story, I want to change, I'm trying to get off this, I'm trying to become better and do this and all that. But the same person wouldn't spend €1,000 or $1,000 on a workshop, on a personal development workshop.
That's why you have to pay with your wallet to change.
You have to pay.
Even one of my mates, like, he was starting a podcast, and I sent him one of our programs, and I was like, pay for it. Not because I need the money, but because you need to actually like put the deposit in, so that therefore you'll go and make the difference. Yeah. Otherwise, if it's handed to you, you won't do it. Yeah. How much people have you given free advice to and have never done anything? Unfortunately, it's 99%.
A lot.
Because they have to pay with their wallet. It doesn't have to be thousands of dollars. It can be like 50 quid or $100. But the second you make that investment, you're going to fucking do the work, basically.
100%. The investment, the hardest part is making that initial payment. But I feel like when you're in the process of that workshop, you're like, oh, thank God. It's like, there's a bit of stress relief straight away. You're like, I made the right decision.
Yeah.
You know, and people spend insane amount of money on personal development. And I have respect for it. I'm like, 100%. That's not money you'll ever regret spending. Like travel, you never regret money you spend on travel, or your pets, or your partners, or what, right? You just don't regret that money that you spend, right? Or your love, whatever. But when it comes to the personal development and the workshops and upskilling, we're human beings. We're in a forever learning environment. Like you're never going to know it all.
Yeah. So
you have to continually try to know more and learn more and progress more, because it's just, you're going to become stagnant otherwise.
Yeah. That's really fill the void with other dumb shit, right?
Oh, 100%.
Even like people that make a lot of money and build businesses, when they've gotten to a certain stage, let's say the business is making like $1 million a year, they will then, because they have that kind of buffer, they'll fill the time with partying, going out, doing dumb shit, versus like spending that extra bit of time like, okay, what else can I do? What can I do personally? Or even like, you know, get into running or get into events, because like you only have health, wealth, and relationships, right? And people chase wealth for so long.
Health is wealth.
Exactly. And then they either neglect health completely and then spend the wealth on the health, and, you know, ultimately have to use both then to work on the relationships.
Yep.
So that's the trifecta of like life, right? So that's why people like Sahil Bloom I follow very closely. It's very interesting because a lot of times when I used to, you know, Sahil Bloom?
Not familiar.
Really big writer guy, someone you should definitely follow. He's a very just influential like figure. He was in private equity, he was a partner in his early 30s, probably making like a couple of million a year. And then he left all that world, moved back to his parents on the East Coast of America, and then built a portfolio of companies. And now as a result, like, he has a child, he's married, and he's much focused on like the relationships and also the wealth, for sure, right? But it's almost a trifecta effect. It's hard to get right, of course, right? But you need to kind of solve all those problems individually. Like, I know you focus very much on your relationships and the health side, and now hopefully I can help you with the wealth side.
Oh,
you know,
great.
But hopefully I can help you with. I think a path for you is 100% coaching. Like, I think helping people. I said this the other day. I was actually writing this out. It was like, I think for you, what would be great is like helping entrepreneurs get into running. I think that would be fantastic. Yeah. Because they have the financial capacity, they're ambitious, they're willing and able, they have high commitment, they can make the engagement, and they're the personality type that would do it. I think honestly, like that, if you know Zach Podgreb?
Yeah. Obsession.
So he's
Have him on Strava. We've shared a few comments here and there.
He doesn't have an offer, but I mean, he is the guy that entrepreneurs follow to learn about running.
And he is literally only started running fucking less than a year ago, I guess.
Like 6 months ago.
Yeah,
I don't even know what his marathon time was, but he was on.
I think he's trying to break the world record for the fastest marathon at the weight he is. I'm going to guess and say he's about 180, 185.
I would say more.
Maybe more. Maybe
more.
But I know that that's a goal that he just set recently that he's going to try and attempt. But I mean, I've followed his journey closely and I've seen his injuries that he's been going through. And there's times where he's like running great for weeks on end and then bang, he's out for a week and I'm like, welcome to the club, brother. Like, this is what happens when you push too hard too early.
Well, there's plan versus execution, right?
100%. And like, you're in it for the long run. Like, running is longevity. You are not doing, like, yes, you can dive. Okay, for example, when I did start, that first 7 months was insane. But I suffered for 2 years after it because of it. My body was broken. I was in and out of the fucking rehab clinic, needling, all these mad, like, I could never maintain a consistent training block. Very, very rarely. And it was all because those first 7 or 8 months, I went balls to the wall. I did no discipline. And I was just like, it was kill or be killed out there. I was like, I'm going to finish this race no matter what. Like, I don't give a shit if my knees blow out or I break my feet. I'm going to finish and we'll worry about problems later. Yes, that was all good, like collecting the medals and it's all great. But like, that's not the fucking way that you want to approach it. Honestly, like, you have to have some bit of consistency with the discipline and like the patience. The patience is the big one.
Okay. So as an ultra marathon runner, how should someone get into running?
I would just start so slowly. Like, even if you are from, it doesn't matter what background you're from, team sports or not, you are doing this and I think a good way is to journal it, feel good about the whole process, but start so slowly, man, and just build up like on a slow trajectory, you know, every maybe at the very beginning, I would say every 5-6 weeks, maybe take a down week and only run like 10, 15 kilometers and spend the time in sauna, pool, cycling on a stationary bike, whatever, focus on a bit of recovery. And as their journey progresses, maybe take a down week every 8 weeks or then a year or two later, every 12 weeks or whatever. You know, some people, they don't take breaks and I get that, but not everyone can do that. There's a lot of individuality with running and what your body can do because every single human is going to be different with how they progress.
It's a deload week, man. You need that in bodybuilding.
You need it.
So, you know, if you're dieting in bodybuilding and you're training really hard, so you're training 6 days a week, a lot of lactic acid, you're walking a lot. So let's say you're walking 12,000 steps, which I know doesn't seem like a lot for a runner, but let's say you're walking a lot and you're dieting and you're not losing weight. The best thing to do is to take a break.
Yeah. Is
to actually increase your food and stop training or train at 50% for an entire week from weight drops. Because your body has been in this high tense state that it's a
state of stress, though, isn't it? Almost,
stressed, and it needs to like almost like alleviate. And then when it slows down, and bear in mind, I've had to have a coach tell me this because otherwise you wake up and you're like, I'm sore, but I'm not a bitch, so I'm going to go to the gym, right? And like that's another ego mindset
it is,
you need to break.
And it happens in running so much at the start.
100%, and that's where I'm at, right? Because you'll find this interesting. Because I haven't drank for 2 years and because my food's dialed in and my sleep is dialed in and my training's dialed in, my fitness is fucking good. It's good. But that doesn't mean my body is good. So that's the disconnect, right?
Yep.
Like I can get on a road, man, and I can run and I feel fucking fine. And even in the heat, I feel fine. I have never felt bad. But my body has felt bad.
Yeah.
And my calf and my hamstring now at the moment.
Bones and muscles.
Yeah, you'll find this interesting is that because I tore my cruciate on my left knee, my right leg has been compensating. And then in my left leg, the left side of my hamstring is inactive and my glute and abductors, whatever's on the inside, is compensating. And obviously, this doesn't scale well. Back to the business bros, right? The scalability of this is, on a 5K, all chill. But when you get into the dark territory, that's why I'm running into problems plus 20K, right?
Yeah, I would just tell people as well to be gentle with your body, you know, and really treat it like a temple when it comes to the running and the recovery. Like if you're not going to do the stretching, if you're not going to do the mobility work, going to do the strength and conditioning, if you're not going to do that, because a lot of people don't do that. I would say double down on things like the sauna, wellness things, ice baths, getting massages. Because at least if you're getting massages and you're not doing the foam rolling and stuff, you are kind of making up for it with the massages. And just really, you know, you got to be gentle with it. I would encourage like a bit heavier people start running on grass, definitely, because it's just better on the body. Run on trails, softer on the legs, less impact. Yeah.
Even though if
like dirt, like your body's going to take way less impact running on dirt trail than it is on tarmac or concrete.
What if that's uneven?
I still think it's a softer ground, so it's not gonna. I think that it'd be pretty well backed, like that comment. To be honest, I think it's generally better for the body to be running on,
even though it's
elevation. Yeah, I think so. It's just softer. Like you're out there, you could run a full marathon that's all on tarmac, flat tarmac. It's that same impact of flat. You're just banging it's just not good. Like it's not good, and I feel like in the ultra trail running scene, there's a lot more older seasoned runners that are showing up every single year from the age of 50, 60 onwards than there is seasoned marathon, because marathoners will slow down as time goes on. And so do ultra runners in trail. I'm just saying, but in regards to consistency and actually getting out there and showing up all the time, I just feel like it's safer on the body. I think so. I just think concrete and tarmac is that constant banging, and the joints just don't respond well to it.
It's weird, right? Because when I look at marathon versus ultra, I've been much more geared towards the ultra for the lack of ego. And I know you've mentioned this to me as well. The problem I am facing with the marathon is because I feel like, even though I haven't done it, I'm racing against a time, which is a number that I've made up in my head to impress people who don't care for no reason. Right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Whereas, and also because like the path for the most part is going to be relatively even though I know obviously some marathons can be up and down, whatever. But for the most part, like the times are pretty static. Whereas I feel like when you go plus 50, maybe plus 70 kilometers, the time is like largely irrelevant. And it's just more so about like doing it and the community and how you feel and all that kind of shit, which is kind of made me a lot more attracted to that versus, because I saw a guy's video the other day. It was like a podcast I listened to, and the reality of how to increase the speed of a marathon is like so fucking crazy. Like the amount of extra work you need to do to be able to go like 340 to 330, 320, 310, and obviously 3. That like that level of commitment or brutality you need to your body. This guy was a coach, and he was like, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I've fallen in love with the further distance because I feel like my body adapts better to just being out there for longer. And anything more than 50k, 50 mile, 100 mile, whatever. I feel like I can run longer at a sustainable pace. But I have tried to up the pace of the marathon. Like my first ever marathon was like 4 hours 20. In my head going into that, I was like, I'm gonna do this in 3 hours 45. And I remember for the first half of that marathon, I ran with like I chased the Pacers pack who were aiming for 3:30 or something. They dropped me after like 6-7 Ks, and I was in excruciating pain. And I remember having to like run to the finish. And then, go on a few months. I ran like a 3:52 marathon, another 3:50-ish marathon, and then went from there to like 3:30, and then went from 3:28 to 3 hours and 52 seconds. And that was when I was training for sub 3. I went down for a Boston Qualifier in Long Beach, and everything went amazing. Had like a sick training camp, really like put a lot of dedication into it, and just cramped hard in my groin and hammy at like 41.5 kilometers. Like finish line, I could hear the finish line, and it was that close. And it just slowed me down enough to stop me getting it done. Did it on the watch, did it on Strava, but chip time, it didn't go my way on the day.
How does that work in terms of you passed the start line and then you started? Did they pick you up?
No, because I was very, very, very close to the start line when I started, like right there. Right there.
But what happens though? When did they clock?
I really don't understand what happened. Right? Yeah, I don't know what happened that day. I just remember getting to the finish line in Long Beach and having a feeling that I'd fallen just short, but then seeing the watch and being like optimistic. And then when I checked the time, it said that I was 52 seconds shy or whatever. But I remember that day, so many people in Long Beach. Like it's a sold out Boston Qualifier. Lots of people there. It's a fast course.
What does that mean?
Certain marathons are going to be qualification races for the majors: Boston, Chicago, New York, Tokyo, Berlin, whatever, right? So it was a Boston Qualifier. I was going down there because I wanted to run sub 3. I wanted to qualify, and I wanted to run Boston while I still lived in North America. It was like a dream. It didn't happen. I missed out, man. And it humbled me. And it pushed me kind of back towards like, I'm kind of sick of the marathons. I just want to go and do ultras again, because one, I don't have to do as much like speed training, and I can just like run easy miles all the time, and I enjoy that more. When I was training hard for the marathon, I remember like coming home from a 30,000 steps day at work, and like
30,000 steps work
every day, man. Like that was
the fuck you working to?
That was a big thing. Like I was doing 10-hour days for 4.5 years in Canada. And like all we do was just walking from one side of site to the other, carrying material, walking, time on the feet, boots on the ground. I mean like serious steps, averaging like 200,000 plus steps a week at work. And that's before I ever even get to fucking come home and swap my construction boots into my runners. I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, leaving my house at 5:45. I was getting home at 6 p.m, 6:15 at best.
Bro, you got to start working online.
Man. Dark to dark. And then I'm out there trying to run a fucking speed session that me and my coach had talked about, or like I'm trying to follow a plan. And it was too much, man. It was too much. And when I kind of stepped away from like trying to follow a coaching plan, because I was changing my life to suit my running plan, when really I should have been changing my running plan to suit my life, right? I was becoming way too, like, it was do or die. Like I was, fuck, I don't give a shit how fucking sore I was after coming home from work. I was going to go out there and I was going to fucking do this mad tempo session that we had planned. And like, I was fatigued, man. And I was always getting sick, and I was just like beat up. And
really good, you dropped your immune system.
Yeah, my immune system was beat the fuck up. I
felt that recently.
I was in agony. I was just in bits, man, the whole time. And that's when I was just like, you know what, fuck this. I was like, I am just gonna, like, even my coach kind of told me, he's like, it seems to be working better for you if you just tip away on your own, because there's less pressure. Like, yes, in the back of my head, I was still putting an insane amount of pressure on me to do well in the races. But I swear, man, like going into ultras for me, undertrained and like fully rested, it seems to be giving me a bigger performance than like training my fucking balls off, being like burnt out from training, and then like a little taper and go on a race. It's like, again, with the longevity side of things and just taking it a bit easier, but being consistent with it at a lesser pace and running with friends and enjoying it, and not kind of being, because I did the whole solo thing for like years, man. I was just out there like a wolf running on my own and like just out there suffering. And it was fun and it was great. And it definitely cemented the mental fortitude I have now for all these races and going forward. But I much rather enjoy like meeting up at the run club, like going running with people, socializing, running at an easy pace, running with like, you know, the run we did a few weeks ago with David, who went from 5K to his first ever 12K. That gives me fulfillment. I'm like, fuck yes, love seeing that, you know, because it's just better. I just enjoy it more.
It's crazy, man. So if you're doing these runs, like building up to an ultra, let's go through the training. So let's go through the training from when you were doing the marathon, and let's compare that to the ultra training.
Marathon training, like I was clocking like starting 40, 50 kilometer weeks, and then in the peak of it was doing like 80, 90, 100 kilometer weeks. And you're talking no double sessions. I was just doing one session a day. I have done, like, my biggest ever week running was 211 kilometers in a week was my biggest ever week running. And that was
in a week.
That was when I wasn't working, though. That was when I was not working at the time. I was back in Ireland for 9 weeks during the pandemic, and I really dove deep into what can I do when I'm not working? Because I've always been trying to work and run. So I'm like, I want to know how much I can run with all this energy and free time. So I was running 30 kilometers a day for a week, and I was starting off every morning with a half marathon, going home, eating, sleeping for a couple hours, napping, hydrating. And then in the evening, 6, 7 p.m. for sunset, I was going out with a friend, doing a little, 9 or 8 or 9K run or whatever. Or I was mixing up. Some days I would do, the second run might be 5 or 6K, and then other days it'd be 9, or it might be a bit more. But my biggest ever week was like 211.7 kilometers.
And is that preparing for an ultra?
That was, at the time, I was going back to Canada with the idea of trying to race the Whistler 100 or the Fat Dog 120. I was mad ideas. Like, I didn't do either of those races. They were both cancelled due to the pandemic. Probably grateful because that would have, I don't know, to be honest, what would have went down with me and those at the time.
And are those, so sometimes I see like those trails for the ultras and they look so fucked up. Like they look dangerous.
Oh, intimidating as hell.
Yeah, like the one that I was looking at Vietnam that we were discussing in Haijiang Loop in the top. Like the way that they describe it versus the way that it is, you know, back to what they described how the Bali Marathon was or Bali Ultra. Like they said it's tough and it's trail. Like the hills literally look like a fucking, it looks like a picture, like isn't it's that fucked up.
Oh, when you look at the elevation of some of these, it's just like triangles. I mean, there is a heap of 100-mile races out there and further that have more elevation in the race than Mount Everest. There's loads. Like, and people can't even fathom that. But like there is, like the Whistler 100, almost certain that has similar, or if not a small bit more elevation than that. So I'm like, these races are out there, man. And it's...
What's the type of people that do that? Like, what would their background be? Because when I watched the backyard, like some of them were like teachers. I know
Courtney DeWalt,
she's also a teacher and
beer drinker, pizza eater.
Yeah, and that's guy Sam Harvey like left his job because basically, if anyone doesn't know, there's a backyard ultra, which is the race never finishes until everyone gives up. So you run every hour 7K until the last person standing. So this guy Sam quit his job because he planned to run for 6 days straight and he couldn't take 6 days off work. This was in the outback in Australia. But then you have people like my friend Ned who like, you know, built this massive tech company and stuff. And then there's a guy called Scott Sambucci, another huge entrepreneur guy from San Francisco. He does ultras too. So like, there's obviously like that breed of individual who's like the entrepreneur. But what's the other type of people basically?
I mean, you get them all. Like you get them all.
What's that trait though? Like what's the trait in the brain?
I still kind of want to believe that every single one of them has some fucked up shit that's gone on.
100%.
Some trauma, some life event that kind of altered the path and changed the way they were going to live the rest of their life.
But are you an entrepreneur who wants to build your influence and authority online? You may have tried some of the hacks and tricks, but none of it has worked. And it makes sense. 90% of podcasts don't make it to episode 3. Of the 10% that are left, 90% of them don't make it to episode 20. That's where Voex comes in. Voex creates, manages, and grows your podcast for you on your behalf. If you've not been getting leads, not been growing consistently, you haven't found your tribe, and you don't know what to do, Voex is the answer. Don't just take our word for it. In the past couple of years, we've managed over 35 podcasts. We've also been able to generate over 55 million views with 500 episodes produced. And not only that, generating over $1 million for our clients in products, services, and sponsorships. So if you want to learn more about how you can build a great podcast and have it fully managed for you, schedule a call with me at Voex and we will help you achieve your podcast goals. And everyone though, so like I've went through some like horrific PTSD. Like right now, like without a doubt, I have like the worst PTSD I've like ever experienced in my entire life. It's really bad, and the way I describe it is I joke about it sometimes, which is like, you know, in Bourne Identity when he's walking through Paris and he's like, who am I, Jason Bourne? That's how I feel sometimes. Really fucked up. And some could say the reason why I'm an entrepreneur is because of those events. And that's a very easy thing to say, right? It's always the entrepreneur who has a business and he's fucked up and da-da-da-da. Which is true, but I also don't like to admit that. But it's easy to say the ultra runner has something wrong with him and instead of going to therapy, he runs. But I would also say the guy that sits in the council estate and drinks vodka 24/7, also something wrong with him, but doesn't do it. So I think that everybody has something that's fucked up. Yeah. It's all about like how you channel it. And for me, like I'm just a builder. Like between everything that goes on in my life, which is like half it's like really fucking horrific, especially lately, I can sit and work on something and not think about anything else for a very long period of time. I can run and train really hard. I can train in the gym. I can record like now and not worry about things. But when I slow down and stop and think is when I have like my worst intrusive thoughts. I hear you. Well, you're not just a builder. You're a creative artist too. Yeah, just in the building essence, like as in like I love to build shit. You know what I mean? Like I love to build things from the ground up. That's the way my eyes work. I can see things. I can literally see how things can turn out. Businesses, products, services, marketing. I can visualize things. Yeah, that's what I can do. You're envisioning it. I can just visualize something, you know, and then I can go and build it, and I can dedicate. Luckily, I'm in a good position financially whereby I could dedicate a lot of time to sitting there and working on something without the return for a very long period of time.
Do you think now you might be dealing with this because you haven't almost reflected on how, like, you're obviously on a massive success train, this, like, everything you've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, right? Do you think, like, have you taken time to reflect on the whole journey? Because, like, sometimes I feel like even me now, it takes time for me to look back on things and be like, damn, that actually happened or whatever. But sometimes it takes time. Like, it can take, like, there's shit that I didn't get over for years. It's still not over. Like,
so you're saying the positive stuff or the negative stuff?
Both.
So on the positive stuff, I think because of Elise, we have like a decent enough grounding to look at things and, like, you know, look at big podcasts and look at, like, the Luke Bellemare podcast and look at this podcast and think, like, that was great. And then with the business, it's so funny. Like, you know, like 2 years ago, I had it in my journal being like, oh, you know, leave my job, live somewhere cool, build a business to 10K a month, and, like, life will be great. And then, like, I look back on it now and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I was thinking so small, you know? And then, like, it's where we're kind of at now. And then that's a blessing and a curse, right? Because it's like that is great and I'm really happy I achieved that, but I don't always look at that. But it's hedonic treadmill to some degree. There's two sides of the hedonic treadmill though. There's one, yes, it's you always want to be improving. But also the stakes get a little bit higher, right? Like, I have a fucking full team. So, you know, making 10K a month, unfortunately, doesn't make payroll anymore. But when you're a kid, it's fun. So I think that there is, like, an adaptation period. It's kind of like, I know that's a bad example. I was going to say, like, you know, if you have your first child, I guess people are like, that's amazing. And then a second child, they're kind of used to having a child. So it's less of, like, an amazing effect, right? That's one side. But I do stop to slow down and where we currently are and for this, a small bit, but I still want to be pushing on to do more. That's one thing. On the negative thing, the biggest thing for me that really fucked me up, I think the biggest thing was, like, suppression. So I don't know, this is, like, so fucked up, but basically I'd gone through, like, a lot of, like, really bad trauma as a kid and, like, as, like, a teenager. And my brain had suppressed a lot of the thoughts. And then it wasn't until my mid-20s when I started to remember what happened. But this is the problem. When you start to remember what happened, you start thinking, did it actually happen?
Yeah.
Or is my brain playing tricks on me?
Yeah, I hear you.
And then as time went on, I was like, okay, it actually did definitely happen. But then where we're currently at with that is the fact that two things. One, it's liberating because I think, well, if I did that, I can do anything. If I was, like, went through really bad trauma and abuse as a child, I can do anything. But the flip side of that is, what else is there that I haven't seen yet?
Yeah.
And what's ironic is before I started to figure this out, I watched Tim Ferriss on Rich Roll, and Tim Ferriss did a 7-day fast, and then he did, like, ayahuasca and all this shit.
Yeah, the psychedelics are an eye-opener.
And he remembered, I don't want to misquote it, but he was abused as a child. A parent, I think it was, very, very young, and he started to remember the neural pathways, opened it up in his brain. And I remember watching that, being like, how the fuck did he not know that, or how did he not remember it? But he didn't see it until many years later. And he's, like, 40 now or some shit. So my biggest worry right now is, what am I not remembering?
Yeah.
And what am I suppressing through building this business, building the podcast, running fucking loads of miles? And what do I need to do to be able to remember?
Yeah. Well, I think, this is my opinion, you kind of unlocking this and coming to terms and seeing it, let's say, and not suppressing it anymore. Some of the stuff you're telling me about, that's in my opinion, that's only happened because you've chosen this sobriety journey.
100%.
If you were still drinking and doing drugs, you would have never. You wouldn't have.
100%.
Right.
100%.
So again, you stay on this sobriety train. You may see more. You may not. You may not. Did that? You might have just got all the bad demons out of the way in one go, but you have to use it as fuel no matter what.
100%.
Use it as fuel. It can be clean or dirty fuel, my friend. They're going to fuel different people. Like, use it, whatever it is, use it to inspire your own journey further and help you grow further. And it's going to help you with the bodybuilding. It's going to help you with your business. It's going to help you with the endurance sport that you're now diving into. You know, those things are important too. But the fact that you've realized it and you're now dealing with it that's a massive positive. That's a huge positive celebration. And you need to celebrate that too. You know, don't beat yourself up and allow the PTSD of it all to consume you either too much.
True.
You know, you should, like you said, it is liberating in a way.
Well, there's two sides to it. It's like, one, I see, as I mentioned, is like, if I did that, I can take this call.
Yeah.
I can pitch this client. I can do this. I can build that business. But at the same time, it's like really sad because it's like, oh, I did go through that. And like, that's really upsetting because if I was to look at someone else who was a child and experienced some of these things I've experienced, I would think that's really sad, you know? And like, that's what kind of like, I'm like, ugh. And then like a lot of the other side to that is like, am I doing the things that I'm doing because of the things that happened to me? Which is like another conversation.
Yeah.
So like one is like the scarcity around money. Grateful I don't have a money problem anymore, but am I only doing that because I had a money problem, which is like an obvious like conundrum. But then the other problem then is like all like the validation and the search for like meaning and all this kind of shit and all that kind of stuff. And then like for instance like Ned, our mentor, like Ned is like a dad to me, and I like value his opinion versus over like everybody else. So when he calls me on my bullshit, I'm listening very attentively. And I would get like, if something goes wrong or something comes up, he's the first person I call. And that also puts me in this position where it's like, well, yeah, is that only happening because this happened? And this is why I think this is why a lot of people that are like, that do a lot of this internal work just get so fucked up basically because of the process, because it's like this black hole that you're going down, you're investigating. I've done a ton of psychedelics too, and they really did help with that. Some were party, some were not party. And now I'm just too busy to keep to try that more, right? You know what I mean? But I do want to do it. I feel like that, like an ayahuasca trip and stuff like this is like calling me effectively, because you know they say ayahuasca like
ayahuasca is known as the most traumatic of all, though.
But apparently like it like calls you upon
it does.
you.
Yeah. Only when you're ready, you'll know. You'll know.
Exactly.
Like for me right now, I'm definitely not considering it. It's not something that I look at. I've done loads of magic mushroom psychedelics and other stuff like that, and acid and things, and they've opened my eyes to some crazy things. But when the time is right,
It's the ego debt, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's fucked up though, man.
It is
so fucked up. And that's why it's really interesting too, because like, I've just been building for all of my 20s. Obviously I was fucking doing retarded shit when I was a kid, but like that's over. And then in this new phase, and then I'm kind of like, oh, well, like, is this new phase, not new phase, as in, is this period of my life only because of what happened? And that's just like, if that's true, that's like really sad, because that means I've done everything that I didn't want to do. I'm only doing it because of what happened, which is like retarded. Like that's like stupid to think about. But it's only true if you admit it to be true, or if it's only true if you let it to be true. Whereas for me, it's like, it's just keep moving forward. Yeah, it's rough, man. It's a rough experience,
I think just getting to this age in general, though, your late 20s, pushing into your 30s, it's a strange time, man, because you're looking around like so many people, whether you're close to them or not, just it doesn't matter. It's just like everyone is kind of at these different crossroads, but I feel like everyone's at those crossroads when you're early 20s too. But I feel like people meet at the same crossroads again in their late 20s and early 30s. Like people are like dialing on the house and the mortgage, or it's like they're traveling, or they're doing sporting endurance events, or they're or they're having kids, or it's just like I don't know. It's just,
that's interesting.
Everyone's caught up in something. Well,
that's the thing, right? There's busy, like being like people fill their mind to be busy, right? Without thinking of what they truly want. And that's why
I think a lot of people don't know what they want, though.
But that's why if you don't know what you want, you'll be told what you want.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be told what you want.
But you will be.
You will. Oh, you will be. Yeah. No. You will. Oh, 100%.
If you don't have a plan, you will be assigned a plan.
Yeah.
Like the system is designed to give you a plan. Like there is a reason why mortgages are like 0% interest rate, is because you don't know what you want. So here's a mortgage. There's a reason why the car is on financing, because they know that they can tap into someone who doesn't know what they actually want and just give them the shiny object. Same with the job, same with the promotion, same with the golden handcuffs. Like that is a system. And the best way to realize that the system is because it's for an outcome. So every system that's created, whether it's pouring this coffee, has a desired outcome, which is drinking the coffee and enjoying the caffeine. But to create a system, you need to build a system, which means there has to be an outcome. So if you're getting people to work for a job that you want, or getting them to take the mortgages, or to have the baby so that they buy the baby products, that is a system that's been created. And if you don't create your own like reality, basically, or don't create your own viewpoint, you'll just be given that's why it's called the default plan.
Yeah.
Because you haven't thought about it. And bear in mind, in that pursuit of them handing you a mortgage and keys and fucking all this kind of shit, they'll soothe you through alcohol and drugs.
Yeah, and other supplements and things that are going to grab you from whatever,
Brother, like
gambling,
100%.
porn, gaming, shit diet, addictive food. The list goes on.
The countries that we're from, do you think that they could have stopped porn?
100%.
100%. It's illegal in Indonesia. You can't log onto it. I've tried. I'm joking. But you can't log onto it.
Yeah.
So you get rid of it. Why is it allowed? There's obviously a scheme there. Same with alcohol for marketing. You look at the Champions League, Heineken Cup, all this shit, right? They got rid of tobacco, but they haven't got rid of tobacco.
No.
Why?
Replace it with vapes, even better.
Exactly.
It's a lot of shit.
Who owns it, right?
Yeah.
And like this is where it's just so funny. If you deconstructed the whole system, everyone looks at America. Let's look at America because everyone knows shit in America. All that system of like tobacco, the tobacco companies, who owns them, they're all integrated with politics, they're all integrated with different people. Same with alcohol, same with the food system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to New York at 6 a.m. in the morning, you can only eat from Taco Bell,
McDonald's.
Chick-fil-A. I don't even think McDonald's is open, man. There's a few other ones that are open about 5 or 6 a.m. The supplier is the same supplier for each company, but they just drop off different products. It's owned. The system is actually owned in that process. And then you're just fed what you're fed.
Yeah.
And like, that's how you become sick in the mind, bro.
Listen, the pandemic, the gyms were closed, but McDonald's was open.
Bro,
You know
it's
what I
all
mean?
a fucking scam.
But back to the system and the whole 9 to 5 and all this, like we work to live. We don't fucking live to work, man.
100%.
And that's it. Like, and if you don't ask, you'll never get. Like the amount of people I've worked with in a job who will fucking work with the same company for years and they'll never ask for a raise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bro, your boss isn't going to fucking ring you up and say, listen, of course there's exceptions. There is bosses out there who may do that. But I'm just saying, like, mostly in companies, your boss isn't going to fucking ring you and be like, thank you for working so hard. I'm going to give you a raise. Like, you have to ask for these things, man.
100%.
You have to grab it by the balls. If you can't take rejection from your boss, you're working for the wrong guy.
Yeah. And that's why I want to help you completely free, just from my own fucking time, to build something, because you have a lot of talent in coaching, the mental health side of things, just how to communicate with people, that it would be a disservice of me to not help you in terms of creating a structure to be able to protect yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I have a lot of gratitude for that. And it's mutual when it comes to distance running and anything I can give to you on that side of things.
100%. But it's the skills, right? You could fucking strip me naked and put me in the middle of fucking the desert, and I'd figure out a way to make sales calls. I swear to God, man. I'll fucking make some dials, hand me a phone, hand me LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and I'll send the fucking messages. Because you have the skills. If you learn how to sell, you learn how to market, learn how to position stuff. You might not even have to do that. It might be something completely different. You learn how to build. You might be familiar with Justin Waller. He hangs scaffolding in Louisiana, build a scaffolding company. They target all these big fucking companies. In the end, he's doing like 35 million a year. He's been on it for like 15 years building up this business.
It's a scaffolding business.
Hanging steel, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah. Hanging. Yeah, that's what I do. I need to send that guy my CV.
Exactly, right? But what I'm trying to say is that like, he learned the skills basically. So like when you build those skills, it's almost like liberating, because then like you're almost like unfuckable to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Because like you'll get curveballs and so on and so forth in life, but if you have the skills, like you can go again, right? Like we have a podcast business. If podcasting evaporated tomorrow, we could create a content business for Instagram.
Yeah.
Same shit.
Yeah.
Fucking video, audio, writing, content, same shit over and over again. And I often say that with a lot of our clients is the fact that like when they have businesses in the back end, which is like coaching, consulting, software products and stuff, it's the same shit. Attention becomes followers become fans become loyal fans become raving fans, and then they complete the cycle.
Yeah, I agree.
And you just do this eternity basically. So that's part of the infinite game too, right? Is like how you set yourself up so that you can basically play a game that goes on forever.
The biggest strangers are the biggest fans too, which is so crazy, isn't
100%. And that's why
so mad.
That's why what you're doing, like you need to start pumping.
So mad. I've got these people, like I've got people on like my close friend stories that I haven't even met in real life, bro. Like,
but what's interesting
because
is
they are literally in my DMs. They're replying to stories like encouragement, like planting seeds in my head that are positive, and I'm like, fuck, man, I don't even know this guy or this gal, and I'm like, got big love for them. I'm like, yes.
Think of the people that haven't messaged you that follow you.
Oh, listen, it's wild.
So that's the biggest thing.
Like,
right? So guys will not reach out to guys generally, but they will implement the feedback. So I've had guys who quit alcohol or build their first business or build their first product. They'll never message me.
Yeah.
But then they might message me 2 years later and say, hey, I actually built this business from this podcast 2 years ago. So it's almost like you plant the seeds. And like, that's your legacy, man. Like that's what actually is a legacy. Like people say the default legacy is like a family, but like it's not. It's how you build your authority and influence and distribute your ideas across the plane.
Yeah.
The plane, a field.
Like I was telling you when we went for that run, I was like, I feel like I'm in a 10,000 piece puzzle for this kind of career move or choice or decision with the coach and all that. And I'm in like the 9,000s. I'm up there. I'm just like trying to piece the final stuff together. I've taken steps towards this. I've had action. I got out of my comfort zone in Vancouver, worked with a local GA team out there who reached out to me after seeing a post about like mental health and running. Was very taken back. It's like by them reaching out to me, met the director of the club, kind of pitched what I could offer. Mm-hmm. He was all for it, was very intrigued by the story, and did, multiple weeks meeting up with his team in the piss and rain, freezing cold, just running laps, doing like these exercises, doing group runs, whatever, and just building a kind of a brotherhood, like this community camaraderie between this group. Like they hadn't won a game in like fucking a few years or something. Just went out to watch their spring league final there like a week before I left, and they won. And I was just like, get in, boys. First GA game I went to watch it in Vancouver in 4.5 years, but it meant a lot, because I was like, I felt like I was a part of something, like, and it felt so good that this random like guy, Martin Costello, reached out to me and like made that opportunity happen for me, and I was just like, man, that is amazing.
Well, why you probably felt that it was, so novel to you is because it was in like a football sense, right? Whereas like if you had in the domain of running, that's when you'll feel most comfortable. Yeah. And I know like in your brain, this is always what happens with offers, is that people think like, oh, there's like all this piecing it together. But when you like have the offer, which is you help people get into running, the things that pop up, you'll be able to solve. Like I'll get on a client call now and I won't prepare anything. They'll get on and be like, how can I do this? And I'll just know the answer intuitively because I've just put in the reps, Could be very obscure, but I'll know like how to basically solve that problem. So what I'm trying to say is that like with your domain of expertise, you need to probably like let go of the formalities and just almost like let the process happen. And as you mentioned about community, a beautiful thing there is like you have your one-to-ones and then you have like a group, which is like on WhatsApp. And then the guys like throw in their Strava links and all this kind of shit, right? And then like there's a good ethos basically. And then that can kind of scale and so on and so forth. You're the key person of influence. And man, I'm telling you, like these guys will pay you $300 to $500 a month. These entrepreneur guys, they're going to learn from you and so on and forth. You'll take care of like a bit of nutrition, the running, the recovery, just chiming in. Yeah. Check-ins once a week on like Loom or whatever. And trust me, man, you'll fucking crush it. And what you'll do is like, you'll build the skills to be able to be like, okay, look, this may be something I want to do. Like 10 clients for you is 5K, 20 clients, which you can easily handle, is 10K. That's how this happens. And then you might think, I don't want 20 clients. I'll create a course. Course is 400. You sell 100 courses. Okay, now we just made 40K on the courses. That's how this kind of stacks, right? It's small in the beginning, and then you start having that offer. It's called like an offer ascension. Is that you get people in for free, get them on a small offer, the higher offers, and so on and so forth.
I'm all for it. And again, just the pieces together. No better time than now. I know that. I am definitely making moves towards it. I was chasing this niche there I was kind of self-obsessed with this niche for a few months I was trying to get into this role of like being a run coach, nutritionist coach for professional fighters. Would have had to probably go and chase a nutritional certificate or whatever just to have that there.
You don't need it. Okay. It's all bollocks.
All right.
That's bullshit.
So I was kind of looking at that, but then, I was kind of just nah to that. And I'm like, should I, the workshops, or is it like you're saying with the entrepreneurs, should I be chasing like high profile entrepreneurs who want to go and run their first ultramarathon or go do a desert marathon, who need a guy to crew them? And like, because like I am for the coaching. Mm-hmm. Like shit, man, I have like a fucking 2013 MacBook or something. Like
it doesn't matter.
But it's all on the phone, whatever. Like I talk the ears off someone, man. I talk all day. I talk for Ireland. Being on the phone, like that's, man, I spend most of my life on my phone. Fuck, bro, having to do that 2-hour breathwork session the day before the Ballyhope Ultra was probably the longest break I had without a phone in fucking months or years.
Well, it's simpler than that, right? Because like for every sort of value exchange, there's a certain amount you need to deliver. So if someone's paying you $200 a month, they're not expecting you to fucking change their life forever, right? They're expecting you to help them with their running, making sure that that's in check, review some of the runs, and that's it. These guys aren't looking to run ultras. They're looking to get fit and healthy.
Yeah.
So like you go back to like the outcome. The outcome isn't to run an ultra. The outcome is to pull up my pants and my belt to be tied so that I'm not a fat fuck for my kid.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're selling.
Role model.
Yeah, you're selling the life. You're selling the dream, which is like their wife is more attracted to them. They're healthier. They have more energy,
Better mindset too.
More focus.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're more well equipped, and their kids don't hate them. Like that's basically what you're selling, right? That's what you're doing through running, and then your vessel is running, right? The vessel is running. The vessel is irrelevant. It could be rowing. I think that's the zone of genius, right? Because like you have the offer, which is selling it to wealthy people, which should always be. You should never work with broke people in general, right? That's why you should sell to wealthy people. And then the vessel is your experience, and then the mechanism then basically is just like one-to-one coaching, no calls,
Receipts.
just checking stuff, and then that will kind of build over time. And then if your biggest concern is that you have too many clients, it's a fucking good concern to have, and there's a very simple solution to solve that as well.
It's not a bad problem.
Yeah, and like bear in mind, I've done exactly this model for people coaching sales teams, neuroscience, coaching software engineers. It's the same shit. Person has pain, which is they're fat and lazy and broke, fat and lazy. They want desired outcome. They're not fat and lazy. They want a mechanism to get there. They don't know how to get there. You are that path.
Example now, just something that happened to me just today. I'm in cafe in Canggu earlier with the missus, having breakfast this morning. I couldn't help but I was overhearing a conversation behind me. It was two Americans that were talking. Didn't see the second guy, but I could just hear this conversation ongoing. And they were in their, I would say, late 30s, 40s. But the first part of this guy's conversation was, he was like, he's like, my face is all inflamed. I'm drinking like 2 beers a day and the hours are getting by. I just wanted to turn around and just smack the shit out of this guy and be like, it's not that hard. Like, cause I think he was talking to a coach because there was a bit of wellness check going on as well. But I was just like, fuck man, you're in Bali, bro. Like you're in like, what can be going wrong here? Like, you know, you've everything on the doorstep to create a better lifestyle for yourself. Mental health, like you can do all these things in a country like this to help yourself.
You can also do the opposite.
You can,
It's
but again, if
you're
you're living here, it's shit, man. You would want to be on the healthy train side
100%.
of things. Like you're not like, fuck. I mean, I get it if some 18, 19-year-old just came here from Australia on his finishing school holiday, like the Irish do in Magaluf or the Yanks do in Cancun. I get it. That's 18, 19.
Yeah.
I don't know, like this was a guy in his late 30s or 40s. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's why you need to have the
Everything starts with you.
Yeah.
Like I said, you cannot help someone who doesn't want to help themselves.
100%.
If you are just going to play that victim mindset and be like, and just cry and bitch and moan and just fucking feel sorry for yourself and it's the same repetitive shit every week, and you're going to go and you're going to do all the shit that you know is got you in quicksand and you're not progressing, is going to drag you down further into the depths of hell every fucking week.
Self-sabotage.
It is absolute self-sabotage at the highest order, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And you know, I do kind of have pity for those people. And like I said, being around a lot of those guys in construction, it fuels me to be better. I kind of need to see that. It's like, I honestly, right? Some people might disagree with this. Homelessness on the street, I feel like that's a problem that could be solved by the government if they didn't spend so much money on war and all this other shit.
100%.
But we need to see that. That's what people need to fucking see, because A, B, C, Mark, David and this person and all these other people walking down the street on the way to their 9 to 5, they see that and they're like, holy fuck, I better show up tomorrow for work. It's like a fear. It's always been there though, since time is as old as time. There's been people on the streets begging. There's been problems. There's a reason that they don't fix it, my friend.
Well, that's why the society is so soft now, right? Because everything is given to you. You can get Uber, you can get Uber Eats delivered to your house, the jobs take care of you,
So
all this
quick,
kind of shit.
Amazon, next day delivery, same day delivery.
So basically the hand-me-outs, people are looking for more and more and more, and they don't think that they're going to be in that position. And this is where it's funny, right? It was like, no one's coming to save you, especially if you're a fucking man.
Yep.
No one's coming to save you. So that's why, like I was saying to you about like building those skills so that, if shit hits the fan, you can make 4K a month or 5K a month. They decrease your expenses, chill out in Bali for a few months, spend 400 quid a month or whatever it is on rent, and set your life up in a way that you're protected. Because yes, it's the heaven and hell analogy, right? Jordan Peterson talks about this. Like, if you don't make those fucking changes, hell is on the way, right? Those dark times are coming. You're going to lose your job. your business is going to fucking tank.
Relationships kind of shit.
Yeah, you need to stay on top of that stuff. So yeah, like it's almost like an awakening, right? It's the awareness that you're gonna need.
Big time. It's just a mad one, isn't it? All of it.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think there's two sides to it. There's also like you're just in control of your own destiny. So like instead of guys just blaming the victim mindset, is that you need to be able to control the controllables. So like, yeah, let's say you're fat right now. Like look at the reality for where it is. If you're fat, if you're lazy, if you're broke, look at the numbers in your bank account, the weight scale, and then see what can be done. It's not going to happen overnight, like you said about running, right? Which is
but it's easy little tweaks along the way.
Yeah, that's why like I weigh myself every day so that I know that I'm getting heavier or lighter. If I'm dieting, I'm getting lighter and lighter and lighter. But I have that awareness by looking at the weighing scales every single day. If I weigh myself once a week, I could get sloppy on Thursday. Friday, I could hit a pizza. And then on Sunday, oh no, the number is up on the weighing scales. But it's like the more acute you are and the more you're actually dialed into that process, that's what it is. Now, the other side of that though is just being able to define what it is you really want, right? Are the goals that you want your goals, or are they goals that were assigned to you?
That's a big one with our background. Coming from an education standpoint, when you're in school, I'll never forget it. I had a maths teacher like pull me out of class fucking a couple of weeks before my leaving cert. And I was in ordinary level maths, like doing grinds all the time, busting my ass trying to fucking get through it, because maths was not my strong point at all, bro. Like it was not my strong point, but I was trying. I tried. I definitely tried. And I got through it. I passed my leaving cert. I got like a D3 or whatever, but all that I wanted to do was pass every subject my leaving cert, and I did it. This is an absolute success, delighted. But this motherfucker pulled me out of class and he was like, if you don't drop down to foundation level, you're never going to go to college. This and that. Like, fuck in hell. Why
do I want to go to college?
Who said anything about college? Who the fuck are you?
Bro,
like,
not one person when I was
like, even as a scaffolder, bro, I earned way more than you, and I had nothing to do with my maths fucking shit or anything that I was doing, right? And it's just like, there's so much pressure put on kids in school, man. Like whatever about in the North America side of things, they get up to their balls in debt with student loans and all that. In Ireland, I think it's kind of like, it's worse because there's more like mental pressure put on, and they try to like, just.
Well, they ask you what job do you want. They don't ask you what you want to do, right? So if they ask you what job do you want, they're assuming that they want to put you into a job, which means going to university. The universities are tied to the companies. Like bear in mind, when you walk into university, all the banks sponsor you when you walk in the front door. Whether you're in UCC, CIT, wherever you are, it's Bank of Ireland, all of them, they're handing you credit cards, all this kind of shit, and student loan. And then when you're in university, they're not asking you what business you want to build or what you want. They're asking you what job you want, and they're feeding you into these companies. Yeah, it's part of the ladder. It's the ascension model of the system. They put you in school. They put you under all this pressure to get 400 points or 500 points or whatever, which I did. I felt all that pressure. Got into university. Slave my way through university, got into these big companies, and these companies are a fucking joke. Like I remember I was in this large consulting company in Dublin, and I had basically like, from a better part, like outperformed all the other like graduates, and I was managing this big project during COVID, and the promotions were coming up, and my plan was to jump 2 levels. Like I said to them, being like, I should jump 2 levels because of the job that I'm doing, and they said no. Part of the model is that you can only jump 1 level at a stage. So out of the 180 fucking graduates, 70 of them got the promotion, but not 70 of them worked equally as hard. Yeah. So now
massive difference between some of the workload put in, like.
Exactly, right? And you don't see this in sport, right? You see the winner and you see the loser. So that was on that day. That's when I handed in my notice, and I was like, "This is fucking stupid." Basically,
that same day, yeah.
It was just same day. That was it. Over. Moved to another tech company, and it was a bit more startup-y, so it was a bit different. But then at that same point, it was still the same thing, which is like, if I want the life that I want, I have to go build it. No one's going to give it to me. Yeah. And it's just ironic, right? Because if you do all those things, you could still be like early 30s, and for the better or worse, broke. Because let's say you make 100K a year, government's going to take 40% of that, into 60. Your mortgage, 1,500 a month. That's now, I'd say 12. You're down to 48. Then you'll have like the kid, let's take care of that, the car loans.
More bills.
You're down to fucking very little, man. Then because of your friends, they're all in the golf clubs, you're in the golf clubs. And because of the alcohol, you're spending the money on alcohol. You're making 100K a year, you're doing a good job and you're basically broke. That's the reality. And that's the system that's laid out to you. Part of being an entrepreneur is that you're not going to pay the employees too much so that the business can make more money. It's part of the business, right? So they will maximize returns by reducing the amount of wages as possible. It's part of business. It's a function, not a feature. It's a feature, not a bug. And in doing so, that means, in theory, that you can never make a lot of money as an employee. Can't. Unless you are partner of the partner of the partner of the partner and you've been there 40 years and you got lucky and the business got acquired. You can't make 5 million. Put it that way. It's not possible.
No.
And in doing so, let's reverse engineer us. If the people know people are going to struggle about money, would you not think that the universities and the governments would have taught you how to build a business? Instead, they're not teaching you that. They don't want a bunch of people like me and you. Imagine if you had a bunch of people like me.
Naysayers.
Yeah, like you literally go like you wouldn't be able to control them. Like the fucking because I don't listen to shit like that, right? And like that's the problem. So that's what they're trying to alleviate, right? They want people to say yes sir, no sir, and that is the system.
Yeah.
And most people never realize that that's a system. That's the biggest thing.
Because they're so encapsulated in it, really, isn't it?
And then,
they're so in it, they don't even realize that they're a part of it.
And then it's an ego thing, right? Is the fact that if you were to tell someone like that, like, you don't have money, you've lost your freedom. Because what happens is they take your freedom. And they say, no, I have my 10 days off a year and I'm perfectly happy, whatever. So they've changed the framing so that those 10 days are actually your freedom. When it's actually not reality. Freedom is being able to just walk around with no shoes on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have control over what's happening. And like that whole idea of the weekend was introduced in, was it the 20s by Henry Ford or some shit? Yeah, man, like it's deliberately set up like that so that you don't chase your life's work, which is like running for you.
Yeah, but there's countries out there that do the 4-day week, don't they? 4-day work week and all that. And I kind of admire that.
People try that.
Then I do look at some countries with the education side, and like when they're 17, 18, they don't make them dive into this college thing. They're like, go and travel for a year.
Yeah.
That's when you will learn more traveling than a fucking 4-year course will ever teach you.
100%.
And people don't want to admit that because, again, they're too scared to take the risk, or they don't want to go and do it because it seems like this financial burden to go and travel or whatever.
It's bullshit, man.
It's horseshit.
And before we finish up, one thing you find is quite interesting too is the idea of creativity. So in school, people think that you're either creative or not. But if you're creative, you're going to have this like bullshit job as an artist or a graphic designer and be broke. That's the mentality. Whereas the reality is everybody is creative, but they beat it out of you to be logical, to work within a system. So it's almost like leaning into creativity, because creativity is where all the ideas come from. Like someone like Leonardo da Vinci would throw 2 different colors of paint against a wall and watch them and then think of different ideas because it was mutually exclusive. So when you're running, and if you're running and let's say you're working in scaffolding, there'll be some sort of neural pathways and connections that you'll think of that will help you think of something creative in your running. But when you sit there and think, how can I run a better ultra, whatever, you can't think of it. So it's almost like we're beaten out of that by getting the job, suiting with Netflix and alcohol and stuff like that. But that's where like a lot of the fucking ether comes into your brain, right? The creativity aspect, which has been huge for me because I grew up thinking I wasn't creative, which is actually the exact opposite. I'm actually extremely creative, as you are. But you have to like basically like let your brain be creative by not looking at your phone when you're at dinner. In the evening when you're tired, not going on your phone and not suiting with that stuff, and just sitting there and letting the ideas come in, because that's the whole idea why you get your best ideas when you're driving or in the shower or when you're running, is because you have mind active and body active. You can also do mind active and body inactive, but it's way more difficult to sit there. Rick Rubin would do that. He would sit there for a long period of time and think of a lot of like thoughts, whereas it's much easier to be mind active, body active, which is why I run with no music.
Yeah, running with no music is I'm a big advocate for. When I train, sometimes I'll train with music, but racing, like no, just no music, because you find out who you really are when there's no music there in the background. And just back to what you're saying there as well, with people as well, it's like it's never too late to reinvent yourself. You can reinvent yourself as many times as you want in your life. People are just fixed in one way, and I hate to see that. And yeah, it's look, we are both going to do great things with the running. with the endurance, you with your podcast, me with probably some career changes in the next few years, because it's not going to mix well. I don't think. I'm in my 10th year as a construction man already, like, and it's just that with long distance running in the last 5 years, it's taxing on the body. I would rather full send it with running, live a more laid back lifestyle with the coaching, with possibly some podcasting, some other stuff, and just look after my health and wellness more, really, while being fully all in on the purpose, which for me is distance running. I love distance running. I'm going to be 29 in a few weeks. The peak age for ultra runners is like 40, I believe. Bro, I want that 11 years ahead of me. Like, that's what I dream of. That's what keeps me up at night, is thinking about, yes, it's been a great 5 years, but what's ahead?
Yeah.
What's ahead? And it excites me. It exhilarates my soul.
And that's why you need like you need an out with construction. Yeah. Because it's just too taxing on your body.
Oh yeah, like, to be honest, being here now in Bali, like being away from the rat race,
that's why Bali is like a fucking psyop, right? Because it's just like,
I've just been on a big trip, bro. Like,
you know, my favorite thing about Bali is like, it could be like Tuesday at like 11, and you could go into like a papito and you just see like loads of people, and you're like, what do these people do?
Yeah, what do they do? And they all do different stuff.
You know,
too,
that's what's funny as well. Like, obviously some of it's smoke and mirrors for sure, but I just think it's just funny. Like, you know, it's like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and like we're like, it's 2 o'clock on a Wednesday. It's my second podcast today.
Busy day.
And like, I've been on my laptop for like 30 minutes today, you know? But it's just funny, right? Because there's different ways you can go about doing it. There's only a handful of ways to go broke. And there's a ton of ways to make money.
Yeah.
You know, so same shit.
It's like, it's when I'm in places like this, again, away from the rat race, I have all these revelations and these ideas, and the creative side comes out, and I'm like, oh my God, like, I should be doing this, and I need to. It's when I'm away from the scene and I'm grounded and I'm humbled and I'm just living a health and wellness lifestyle, is when all the ideas just come to life, and I'm like, oh man. And like, now, for the first time in my life, this is my longest time not working and like not having a job, like on paper, lined up officially in my whole life. So I know that the next few months are going to be like life changing in regards to the decisions I make, and I am open to it all, really. I'm not cemented in on anything, and
keep the pressure low too on yourself in terms of that, right?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's just, again, letting the shoulders drop and just like,
fear is a mile wide, inch deep, right? So like, you know, fear, it's the first step of the ultra, signing the marathon, sign up, you know, that's what's scary, is the first inch. The rest of it's not scary. It's just like step. It just keeps flowing, you know?
Big time.
Man, I want to say a big thank you. This is fucking sick. We're running for like 2 hours. Probably do another hour. Probably do another coffee. But
all fucking day, man. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it, though. Honestly,
thank you, man.
You're a fucking savage. There's not many people. Like, I've recorded a lot of podcasts, but there's not many people that like operate at your level and have that like self-awareness too at the same time, which is like, it's awesome, man. And like, you're super young. It's going to be
No, I appreciate it, man.
And man, a lot of people are going to enjoy this podcast.
I hope so.